YouTubers, Mike Martin's here, Mike Martin's channel. Thank you for joining me on a very special non-pornographic edition, very PG edition of Trends in the Housing Market. It is I, Mike Martins, bringing you the trends in the housing market, broadcasting out of Merritt, British Columbia. And I am your humble servant, Mike Martins. I like saying my name. It kind of sounds cool, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, let's get to what's going on in the markets. I got a few plugs to do. Watch my series, Starting a Business from Scratch. I got the signage put up. I basically took a place that was completely destroyed. When I'm saying destroyed, I'm talking about like uninhabitable place, and I took it and actually made something of it. Sorry, I'm just setting up my screen here. Took it and made something of it, and I really welcome you guys to join me on this series. And what I've done with this business, it's been incredible how I built this thing from scratch and kind of envisioned everything before it happened. Really good motivation, a very good motivational information if you're looking to start your own business. Very strongly recommend to watch it. Give it a chance, you might like it. And one thing that's getting a lot of views on my channel is this, my predictions from the housing crisis from, oh God, when was this? This was from, I posted this, I think it was like, I think it was last year or sometime. Let me see, I didn't put the date on it, but this is a video of a video that I had, basically, that I'm talking about how I predicted that the housing crash is going to come this summer of 2017. And I believe that it was, yeah, here it is, September 28th, 2016. So I kind of forecasted what was going to happen with the housing crisis and how long is it going to go for. I predicted a mini crash in the spring and people jumping on thinking that the market's cooled, and then a major crash in the summer. So we're, what, 2-3 days into summer? Or 4 days into summer? I don't even know. But anyways, in all fairness, it's kicked off. I wrote a video. I did a video a few weeks back saying I was wrong. I apologize. I'm sorry and for what happened and for mispredicting what was going to happen, and my prediction was wrong. But then a lot of people were telling me, no, Mike, summer just started. Relax. You are right. And then people are writing to me, Mike, me and the lady make 60% less living in Hope, left over the month ago, and living and working in working in Surrey, and leave the city people. And that's what he says in his thing here on his on the comments here. You should read some of these comments on some of these videos. You know what I'm saying? Another guy to hit the scene, Watson Estates. This guy has interesting angles on the real estate market. He obviously knows, he's dressed like he knows what he's talking about, and he obviously knows what he's talking about. I watched a few of his videos. Interesting perspective. You need to see perspectives to understand what's happening, and unfortunately there's not enough people out there that are voicing what's happening because they're scared they're going to lose their job to talk about a house. Oh my God, I'm going to talk about a house and I'm going to lose my job. If we're living in a time where if you talk about a house and you're going to get fired, things don't look good. I'm telling you, things don't look good at all. If you're worried about what your employer is going to say if you talk about a house, and I'm not talking I'm talking about if you work for Domino's Pizza or you work for, I don't know, like a painting company, or you work for God knows what, and you're worried about what people will think or what your employer are getting fired for talking about houses. This is not good. Watch this guy, Watson Estates. He's growing in popularity, and give him a chance. I think he's got some good content coming up. Looking at some of his videos on different points of views of what he thinks, which is really good. That's one. Another one I'm going to plug it again, and I keep plugging this channel. And this is a really good channel. It is the Walking Journey channel. It's my personal friend, Anthony, who lives in Texas. He's a really nice person. Me and him, we've been friends for a long time. He's got some really good videos, and the reason why, it's the main reason to leave California. He's doing the whole thing I did when I left Vancouver, and the main reason why I left Vancouver and stuff and all that stuff. Buddy is talking about this, and he's talking about leaving California, why California is a place that basically he thinks is becoming a major problem. But a lot of people are leaving California in droves. It's somewhat out of control of the amount of people that are, and skilled people are leaving California. California brain drain, if you want to call it that. It's a massive California brain drain. So he talks about why he left California, and then in his videos here, you'll see a lot of good videos of the land he bought in Texas for like 17 grand and built a house, and I think it cost him 70 or 80 grand for everything. He's debt free. And the guy's got a lot of potential in his videos. He's got lots of good content, and he's got a whole section here about his sister Jackie. Strongly recommend you guys watch what's happening with him and his sister Jackie. And someone's asking in the comments if I'm taking TA65. I'll do a plug for TA65. Yeah, TA65 is basically a life extension drug. Oh, there's my videos on here. Wow, look, my video comes up, TA65. Here it is here. TA65 basically is a drug I've been taking. Well, it's not, well, I don't know if it's pharmaceutical or what it is, or a supplement, nutrition supplement, if you want to call it that. So there's TA65 update there. So this is what it looks like. I've been taking TA65. Oh my God, this is my video too. It's got lots of views on it. I have been taking TA65 for years, and I don't know. And I in my videos I discuss I'm taking it because I want to live long enough to see my kids graduate from school and get married and blah 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 and be at peace, you know. And that's why I want to live long enough to see that. You know, I'm 39 now, but my kids are 1 and 3, right? So, I mean, the odds are, you know, not good, but I want to be around, you know. So this is it here. Wow, 8,000 views on this TA65. I'm gonna do a TA65 video tomorrow for the people that are asking about it, man. Holy smokes. Wow, there's a lot of views here for this. I'm surprised. Anyway, so I've been on it for a while now, and does it work? I don't know. Do I look like I'm 39? I started taking it when I was 35. So do I look like I'm 35? Have I aged past 35? That's the question. That's the question a lot of people ask, you know what I'm saying? Oh, Steve the Plumber's here, thank God. Anyways, let's kick off trends in the housing market. I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight, and I want to thank people watching this on replay the next day. This is our midnight edition, late night edition. It's Sunday night. For some reason, I felt like doing this tonight because it's been a while. I've been working on the shop. So what's happening in the housing market? And I said, I keep saying the same thing. It's this massive tug-of-war between the media. There's this one media here saying, hey guys, you know, this is all good. Don't worry about it. We're good. Then you got this other side saying, what are you guys doing? Are you out of your tree? Aren't you seeing what's happening? Were you just on another planet last week? Why are you buying a house today? So you got this tug of war happening because the government, that governs the country basically, and governs us, is basically saying to us that they don't want to see a crash. They don't want it. This is a disaster. Whoever's in office when this happens is basically going to take the blame for it 100 years from now. 100 years from now, people will be like, oh, wasn't he in office when that big crash of 2017 or 2018 happened? Yeah, that was a big deal, you know. I think it'll be bigger than the Great Depression. I think it'll be a bigger deal than okay, Windows needs to do an update. No. Snooze. Okay, I don't want this to restart my computer now because I don't know why Windows needs to do an update right now while I'm streaming this right now. And it would really upset me if this computer reset because of a Windows update, which I updated 2 days ago. Anyways, interest rates could rise July 12th. Who are the winners and losers? National online journalist Money Consumer Global News. Bank of Canada could raise interest rates as early as mid-July. Who would higher interest rates benefit and who would they hurt? After holding interest rates at record low levels for the past 2 years, the Bank of Canada BOC has dropped a number of hints over the past few weeks that it's ready to finally start increasing rates. Some economists believe that the first hike could happen as soon as June 12th. July 12th. Sorry, I can't read. July 12th. We're in July 3rd right now. So July 12th. 12th day of July. RD Day of the Queen 2017. July 12th. And the next time the BOC will review its interest rate target. Now, remember a couple of weeks ago I was talking about how the interest rates keep going up in the United States because Trump is president now, so they kind of need to stimulate the economy. So like what a better time to stimulate the economy when Donald Trump is president. So it makes it look like he's the worst president that ever existed when he's trying to save his borders or his people and sovereignty. Anyways, other experts believe that the bank will wait a little longer. Ontario-based financial planning company TriDelta Financial, for example, sees the rate increasing happening later this year or early in 2018. So these guys are predicting it for 2018. So what do higher rates mean for Canadians? Who will benefit and who will lose? Debtors versus savers. The intuitive answer is that if you have a lot of liabilities and little way of savings, this will hurt you because higher interest rates will make debt more expensive. Your monthly debt repayments will go up, and it will take you longer to pay down your debt. Conservatively, if you have a lot of money saved up, banks will finally start paying you a bit more and parking hard-earned cash with them. Remember back in the days when they used to pay you 4.5% on your money? Save your money? Do you remember that? When you had $1 million, you got 45 large a year in interest at 4.5% interest. That was the days when people used to put lots of money in the bank because they got something back from it. Debtors with variable rate loans will be the first to feel the pinch. The interest rate on this kind of debt, in fact, tends to move up or down according to whether the BOC pegs its key interest rate. Canadians with variable rate mortgages and lines of credit will soon face higher debt repayments. Trouble with homeowners. 1/3 of Canadians say they would worry if their mortgage payments went up by 10%, according to a recent loss bill. So for homeowners, variable rate mortgages. I've been talking about this. Variable rate mortgages, variable. It goes according to, and especially with those lines of credit where you're playing rate, where you're playing the going rate +2 or +3. You're toast. Let me wet my beak here. So Jake Carter's got a comment here. Thanks for joining us, Jake, tonight. One house sold in April 2017, $1.6 million. Buyer walked away. Resold 2 weeks ago, $1.41 million. Yikes. So there's a Vancouver-style rebound happening. So once again, if you're watching this 1,000 years in the future and you're wondering what the hell am I talking about? Yeah, in this time, $1 million for a house. Not a plantation. Not a mansion. Not an estate. Not Wayne Manor. Not Trump Tower. A house for a medium-sized family to live with a medium-sized income. Yes. Let's continue here. Canadians with fixed-rate mortgages would feel the impact of higher rates until their loans come up for renewal. So if you have a 3-year term, a 4-year term, or a 5-year term, 5-year amortization, with the 30-year term, with the 5-year amortization, you'll be saved for a few years until you're up for renewal. The truth about debt in Canada is that many homeowners are not prepared to adjust to rising rates. Even with interest rates at rock bottom, nearly a quarter of Canadian homeowners polled in recent Manulife survey said they have experienced not having enough money to pay the bills at least once in the past 12 months. Do these people like to sleep? Because if I was in this position where I couldn't pay my bills for 1 month in one of 12 months, I would have a lot of trouble sleeping at night. Because I like to sleep. I don't know about you guys, but sleeping is great. Sleeping is the transition between day and night and your body's system to adjust and you know, I'm not going to go there. But anyways, yeah. Whoa, this is another article. Rising interest rates could cost the average Canadian $130 a month more in debt repayments. You're probably sitting there thinking, oh, $130, it's like $130. Who cares? No. That's on one line of credit. That's on one Visa. That's on one American Express. That's on one Diners Club. I don't know who the hell uses Diners Club, but there's people using Diners Club cards. You know, and Discover and all those other cards and what's in your wallet. I don't know what that one's, Capital One. But in all fairness, that's per bill once you start adding it up. Millennials will be hit hard. Younger homebuyers and particularly vulnerable millennials saw their mortgage debt rise more than any other generation, the report noted. That's very true, actually. People in their 20s and 30s who just purchased a home will face higher rates at a time when they are just starting to hack away at this mountain of mortgage debt, said Paul Kershaw, a professor of the University of British Columbia and founder of Generation Squeeze, a group that advocates for policies to help young Canadians. Not just millennials, across all age groups, though, those who have borrowed aggressively against their homes will likely scramble, said Zalier. Yeah, those who bought a nice Mercedes to show off, using their home equity like in Sydney and Melbourne. All these people riding the coattails of these home increases and all this massive equity in the homes, and all these people buying these fancy cars, which is not going to make them look any better in the mirror. You know what I'm saying? But all older generation who have seen equity in their homes rise along with the house price have been using home equity loans to finance anything from day-to-day expenses to home renovations, but most home equity loans come with variable rate interests that would rise with the BOC rate hike. Why housing have-nots could win. Higher interest rates could also cause home prices to stagnate or decline. Policymakers have been trying to cool down housing prices a number of ways in recent years, from tighter federal mortgages, regulations, and provincial level taxes on foreign home buyers in Vancouver and Toronto so far. The housing market seemed to withstand most of them, but higher interest rates will be another factor that could hurt it, said Zillier. So, this is a long article, guys. If you want to read it, it's right here. But it's a really, really good, let's read this part right here. It's on here if you want to read it, guys. In 2016, 9 in 10 insolvent homeowners had very little equity in their homes, with the average mortgage debt amounting to 85% in the net resizable value of their home, which is the sale price minus real estate agents' fees, taxes, and other costs. Insolvencies are now at record lows through much of Canada, but that could change once interest rates start climbing. So that's bankruptcies. Let's move ahead. This week's top stories in housing. This is a really good one from Better Dwelling. Better Dwelling is a decent blog that's really good. Wow, I got people watching this at this time. Thanks, guys, for staying up and watching this. And if you're watching this on Rewind, thanks for watching the Rewind, rerun, or whatever you want to call it. Happy Canada Day too. Sorry, I'm just getting into this really hard. It's been a while, and I got a lot to talk about. I want to wish everybody a happy Canada Day. 150 years. I'm very happy, proud to be Canadian. I'm Portuguese Canadian, dual citizen. Let's continue here. This week's top stories: Canada throws 2 signs of financial crisis. Vancouver's subprime fuel and inflation falls way below target. Deadly combination. That's one of those really bad chemistry sets you buy back in the day, and you start mixing chemicals, you start getting problems, right? Yeah, well, this is what's happening here. Time for your weekly cheat sheet on the most important stories in real estate. Canada hits 2 critical warning signs for a financial crisis. The Bank for International Settlements, BIS, or BS, the central banks for central banks, is warning that its members that Canada may hit a financial crisis soon. Canada's credit's top GDP gap and debt service ratios are about to hit critical warning levels. Both indicators have to do with excessive household debt. The credit to GDP gap measures the consumption of credit compared to the output of its economy. Breaching a ratio of 10 results in banking crisis in two-thirds of economies. Within 3 years, Canada's currently sitting pretty at massive ratio of 14. The debt service ratio is measured by economists used to determine how much debt the country will be paying in relation to exports and earnings. I don't know if you guys were in Canada 30 years ago, but this was huge production. Canada was exporting furniture, mattresses, bicycles, CCM, all those companies were big, you know, like the Honey Company, the big Red Path Sugar, all those big companies, you know. Canada had strong exports, and now we're pinning everything on housing. This sounds good, but it's going to have a domino effect according to BIS. They modeled the rise of 250 basis points, which would bring interest rates to normal, according to the Government of Canada. This rise in rates will send the DSR well above the critical level, complicating the country's management of consumers' debt even further. Now, this is important, guys. One of the key measures of inflation, the Consumer Price Index, CPI, fell a low for 2017. The Bank of Canada, BOC, targets the CPI at 2% and has maintained an average of 1.5% over the past 5 years. May fell to 1.3%, the lowest it's been for the year. The BOC has been discussing raising rates, but this would likely lower inflation even further. Advanced economies generally don't see inflation except in times of significant recession. And then get down here. Hundreds of thousands of Canadians don't have access to clean water. So that's another story there. And late mortgage payments in Ontario fall to the lowest since 1990 crash. Let's move ahead, people. Okay, there's a lot of people commenting here. Yeah. Someone's asking if they did fireworks in Merritt. Yeah, there was actually some fireworks. A huge show here by the river there at one of the big parks. But I didn't go because I was really tired because I've been working on that story. Watch that series. That's a good series. Okay, let's continue. Vancouver still Canada's least affordable housing market, but Toronto closing in. Okay, so I'm reading this article because it's going to tie into the second article I'm going to read. So you guys get what I'm trying to get at here, okay? So give me a chance with this article, and then I'll read the second article to tie this in. Unaffordability gap tightens between the two cities, but Victoria also shows major signs of affordability erosion. There's I like how they like to show, you know, these homes in Toronto and make them look like the painted ladies in San Francisco, like they're really nice. Yeah. Anyways, I'm not gonna go there. Victorian houses in Toronto, housing affordability has fallen in Canada's biggest city, according to RBC reports, says Shutterstock. Toronto is closing in on Vancouver as Canada's least affordable housing market in the first quarter of 2017, according to recent RBC housing affordability study. According to the report, housing prices in Toronto are at their worst level ever, while Vancouver has experienced a minor relief in the first quarter. RBC minor relief. I like how they say Vancouver has experienced a minor relief in the first quarter, or Q1. It's tanking. Minor relief, it's tanking. Why don't they use, instead of trying to use words to make you think you are smarter in a way where you think, I could read this, but it's tanking is what it's saying. RBC's aggregate affordability measure, Vancouver dropped for a second consecutive time by 1.2%, points to a 79.7%, meaning the average Vancouver household would have to spend roughly 45.9% of its income to cover its ownership costs for the average home bought in the first quarter of 2017. Whoever bought in Q1 in 2017 in Vancouver, watch out. It's not a threat, it's a warning. This is still the highest in the country, even with the policy implementations like the foreign investors tax. So people are sending me messages here on Facebook. The affordability measure Toronto surged more than 1/3 in 2014, recently jumping 2.7% points, 72% in Q1, the closest it's been to Vancouver's measure in 14 years. According to the report, Vancouver prices have already climbed back to record highs in May. Really? Across Canada, the average affordability measure is 45.9%. Housing prices have continued to rise in southern Ontario and places like Hamilton Street, St. Catharines, Kitchener-Waterloo, and buyers seek more affordable areas outside the Toronto core. Outside the Toronto core is even worse. You got Mississauga, which is expensive. You got Oakville, Ontario, which is very expensive. Then you have Brampton, which is expensive. Then you have, you got a lot of cities surrounding Toronto, but they're not cheap. Across Canada, the average affordability measure is 45.9%. Housing prices have continued to rise in southern Ontario. Read this, okay? A similar effect has been seen in Vancouver as affordability levels have driven buyers toward other markets like Victoria, which is declining in affordability last year and the beginning of 2017. Like I said, my block where I live, I think here, Mike, all the other people down going around the corner, a majority of them came from Vancouver. A majority from the Vancouver area. It's like, you could call this Vancouverite town or Vancouverite street because everybody here came from Vancouver. So they're seeing the other cities gaining, okay, if you're in Toronto, the only place I could see where you could go that's affordable would be like Cambridge, Waterloo, like Windsor. Those are the only places I could see where you would actually, it's not that expensive to live, where it's still, but outside the GTA, forget it. Victoria has had most significant erosion affordability among major Canadian markets. The RBC aggregate measures a 1.1% percentage points, 56.7 in the last period, a 7-year high for the city. Outside British Columbia and Ontario, affordability had marginal improvement in the prairies and declined slightly in Quebec and Atlantic provinces. Now, from the article I just read, someone just commented to me saying that Waterloo is getting crazy too. Yeah, so it's not looking good. Yeah, so like just this, Imagine 80 said, I feel like rich overseas investors buy with cash and they don't care about interest rates. Yeah, it's the Canadian proper that's gonna suffer. I've been talking about this. It's the Canadian proper that wants to buy in the market. It's the Canadian proper that wants to live the Canadian dream and buy a house and settle, have family, and lay roots. The investor that comes and pays in cash, they don't care. The interest rates could go up to 10%. They don't care because I'm buying this. So you got a combination of two guys working together. One guy buys a house for 1.2. Money's clean. It's already purchased in Canadian real estate. Buddy that's working with him buys the house for 1.3. They just clean $1.2 million in a bank account in Canada, so it's clear. Buddy buys back the house from the other guy, which has already happened on file. It's on record. You can look it up. Then back and forth buying houses up until $2 million, $3 million, and they end up cleaning $30, $40 million in Canadian banks. They don't care about interest rates. And if they did, it's cheap. It's cheaper than a loan shark. The mafia isn't even this cheap. You know what I'm saying? The mafia is a bad thing. You're better off doing it through the taxes that they're charging you. The percentage taxes or vacant tax. It's worth it. It's cheaper than dealing with the mafia. Anyways, let's move on here. Toronto housing bubble teetering dangerously. After years of media, let me zoom this in so you can see it better. Let me see here. After years of media and government denials, there is finally general consensus that the Toronto housing market, like Vancouver, represents an asset bubble. Unprecedented proportions. Unprecedented proportions mean this is effing crazy. That's what it would mean. The roots of these housing bubbles are clear and well known. Ultra reckless monetary policy from Western central banks. In 2008, these central banks crashed interest rates to historical unprecedented levels. They did that because of the whole fractional reserve lending. Watch a YouTube video if you want on fractional reserve lending, how banks work, so you understand what they mean by crashing the rates and how they could afford, how a bank can afford to do this through fractional reserve lending. Look that up, guys. To get our limp-wristed governments to go along with this monetary insanity, all these central bankers promised a normalized interest rates immediately in 2009 as soon as the crisis has passed. They all lied. Well, who doesn't lie? I mean, politicians, like, lying is second nature. It's like, lie. We don't expect our family, friends to lie to us. It's bad. Family and friends lying to us, it's not accepted. It's not acceptable. But government is a different breed. They're not family. It's second nature to lie. Let's continue. 8.5 years, interest rates across Western world are still lower than any other time in history. Why have Western governments and Western central banks refused to engage in such interest rate insanity in the past? One of the biggest reasons is because it is elementary economic fact that sustained below normal interest rates always produce housing bubbles. There has never been an exception to this economic principle because it is founded in simple arithmetic. Reduce the amount of money that homeowners waste paying interest to banks on their mortgage payments and home buying demand will always spike. Push interest rates to the lowest level in history and leave interest rates at ultra reckless level permanently, and the inevitability result is that the biggest and baddest housing bubbles in history of Western real estate markets. Out of these urban real estate bubbles, the Toronto bubble is one of the worst and is now teetering in its starkly obvious turns. In mid-June, which was a few weeks ago, it was reported that sales levels in the GTA were 44% lower than the same period the last year. Today, equally disturbing and additional data was reported. It starts with the housing units sitting on the market much longer. And it's a long article, people. Who wins from pending bubble collapse? The banks. Remember, the crash of the first U.S. housing bubble beginning in 2007, roughly 15 million homes were seized by the U.S. banks. Millions more mortgages would have gone under. U.S. government and big banks had not made a Herculean effort temporarily reinflate the U.S. housing bubble. Millions of Toronto and Vancouver properties will be in dire risk of foreclosure when the bubble pops. At the moment, it's looking like Toronto will be the first market to go kaboom. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, people are asking when can we phone into the live show? Yeah, you know what? I'll get a Skype thing going. I'll see if I could figure out. I mean, I don't use Skype. But I know Skype works really good when you're working with live streaming. And I wouldn't mind trying using Skype for people to phone in. There's a lot of people commenting here. Thanks for joining me. And such a late hour, too. I can't believe. Oh, JW is here. Thank God. Anyways, let's continue. GeekWire. Booming the Seattle. Okay, so now, remember what I was talking about this like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 weeks now? How in Seattle, they're making pamphlets and flying in investors, and they're making pamphlets in foreign languages for investors to come in and buy in Seattle. Well, it's getting really out of control right now in Seattle. So if you're living in Tacoma, and you're living in wherever you're living in Seattle, Olympia, wherever you are, it is really, really bad. It's out of control. It's worse than Toronto. Believe it or not, it's actually maybe 4 times worse than Toronto. Someone's asking me to link an article. If you go back in the video, look at the title and just look it up. It should be one of the newest. These are all new articles, so you have to rewatch this to get some of the articles. Anyways, this is look at this tiny article with very little to no precedences. This is from K5 News, Washington. Just on the side, so, a little blurb here, or maybe a little poem. Let's read this. I can read this in 3 seconds. Home values in Seattle continued their steady ascent in April. According to the latest Case-Shiller National Home Price Report, Seattle's residential real estate saw a 12.9% year-over-year price increase, making it the nation's fastest-growing city for home prices for 8 months in a row. So everyone's asking about if I seen the BNN article where the Toronto housing prices decline. Let's look it up. I probably have it here. Hold on. Might have it here. I'll look it up before I end the show here. Look at the weather in Seattle. I just saw the weather there for a sec. There it is. Yeah. Anyways, let's continue here. Seattle is not only the northwest city with a red-hot housing market. Portland's home prices are the second fastest growing in the country, like I've been mentioning, with a year-over-year gains of 9.3% in April. Both Seattle and Portland outpaced national home value increases, which saw annual gain of 5.5% in April. So it goes back to what I was telling you guys. This whole West Coast is plagued right to California. It's out of control. Okay, so everyone's saying I'll freak out with the article. So what's the article? BNN. What is it, guys? BNN. It was up here. Oh, come on. Where was it? Toronto house prices decline. Let's see what this says. See what I get here on the news. Okay, so this is the newest one. This will feel severe. All right, let's read this, people. This will feel severe. Toronto real estate industry bracing for June sales slowdown. The average price of Toronto home likely to tumble more than 100 large in June. $100,000. 100 large. From the frenzied peak prices of earlier this year, according to the Toronto Realtor. The Greater Toronto housing market took a sharp turn following Ontario's 16 new measures to rein in the region as listings skyrocketed and sales plunged. You could even just do this in sign language. You could just, yeah. Average prices hit a record peak of 920 large in April. The same month, Premier Kathleen Wayne introduced the measures. Next Thursday, the Toronto Real Estate Board will release its statistics for June. While prices are expected to be some 5% higher compared to June 2016, the average price should be down around 12 to 15% from the peak prices in April. John Paslis, president and broker of realoffery.com told BNN in an email. A pullback of the size would mean the average price for June could be down some 110,000 to 138 large from April peak. Before the abrupt turnaround, the Greater Toronto market bore a hallmarks of unsustainability. Red hot sellers market. Lauren Hall, CEO and broker record of Zukasa SA, and told BNN in an email. While sales year over year are coming down, last year was an anomaly if these 2017 figures show we're potentially returning to a more sustainable market, he said. A more sustainable market means kaboom. That's what it means. It's a nice way of saying, it's a polite way of saying, you know, or a sweet way of saying. Now, hold on a sec, guys. Someone commented, Steve the plumber, says, this never happened in Vancouver. Now, I'm going to tell you my opinion why it never happened in Vancouver like it's happening in Toronto. Because Vancouver has been building for the last decade. The last decade's been building with a lot of foreign money coming in for the last 10 years. So it's a stronger house of cards. Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland, London, Vancouver. It's a different house of cards. They've been building for the last 10 years. You could ask anyone in Sydney, Melbourne, how long this housing crisis has been going on. They'll tell you. It's a nightmare. There's people that are 1 decade bought out of the market. There's people in Vancouver that are 1 decade out of the market. Okay. In 2007, when I moved to Vancouver, the average house was 650 large. Okay. When I was in Miami, the average house was 190,000. It's a huge difference in pricing. Huge. So I never bought in Vancouver because I thought there was going to be problems when a house that's worth 150,000 is selling for 650. You got problems. You know what I'm saying? But I'm thinking because the House of Cards was built for a long time and been molding for a long time with politicians and this and a lot of side deals and stuff and making sure things fit properly for the next 5 to 10 years. There are people in Vancouver, like I said, Sydney, Melbourne, all these other cities, Auckland, that have been bought out of the market for 10 years. Not 10 weeks, not 10 months, a decade. And people with families that are trying to get in and lay roots, they can't. Let's go. The surge of new listings and drop in sales will see months of inventory, an important market metric. It hit 3.6 months for freeholds and 2.1 months for condos, he added. In March, Toronto was looking just 3 weeks of inventory. We're now moving into a more balanced market. Okay, more balanced as in it's not looking good. So let's jump to this article back. This is very important because this blueprint here, this is for people that are listening to my stream. There's a lot of people that listening to my stream. I'm going to describe it for you guys. It's basically a map of America, and it's got all these major cities. I mentioned this on last week's show. I want to mention this again because this is a very accurate pattern of what's going to happen. So you got Seattle. So these are the top cities where $1 million listings have skyrocketed. Okay. Number 1, Denver, Colorado. Number 2, Santa Rosa, California. Number 3, where are you, number 3? Boulder, Colorado. Number 4, True Key, California. Number 5, Fredericksburg, Texas. Number 6, Heber, Utah. Number 7, Boston, Mass. Number 8, Seattle, Washington. Number 9, where are you, number 9? Santa Fe, New Mexico. And then Charleston, South. So a lot of these cities, you're like, what the hell is Heber, Utah? Or what's Boulder? Or what's Charleston, South? Well, these are cities that are booming now because a lot of people are leaving the major cities and going to smaller towns. A major city like Seattle was 500,000 people. Now it's just staying at 500,000 people, but the price of property is booming because investors are coming in. So you're going to see a decrease in populations because the people, especially the people that are doctors, lawyers, people that have plastic surgeons, specialists, skilled tradesmen, they're not going to live in these expensive cities. And this is a big, big problem. And this pattern is going to start happening in these smaller towns. I mean, Boston, Massachusetts is a big city. But I'm saying a lot of these small cities that are getting up there in pricing is a lot of people leaving the other major cities to make up this gap. So I'm just throwing this out there, and I've said this last week, and this is a very good article. I really want you guys to read this because this is a plague that's plaguing every English-speaking country in the world is being plagued by this problem. Why? Free market! Hey, come in, buy our futures. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't panic. It's just your oh, hello, it's Peter Van from Auckland, New Zealand. I got a story coming up for you, Peter, in like 2 articles from now. Now, house prices in Australia, big city surges in June. This is from 3rd of July, guys. I'm reading this in the future. This is from July 3rd. House prices in Australia's big city surged in June. This is bad news for the Australian proper, because the Australian proper, you know, in the next 15 to 20 years, I see Australia losing its sovereignty of what Australia means to be Australian. I see Australia losing, you know, kind of just losing itself and becoming a playground only for the rich, the major cities, I'm saying, right? The best attractive cities is what I mean, right? And Australian capital city house prices rebounded in June, driving by strengths in Australia's southeastern capitals. According to CoreLogic's Hidrocene Home Value Index, prices across the country increased by 1.8% last month in weighted terms, recovering from a 1.1% decline in May. However, as shown on the table below, the large increasing in national figure masked a noticeable divergency in price movements across the individual capital cities. Sorry guys, I'm getting hot here. Let's keep going. So this is what's happening here. So it's a really good graph. Tells you the quarters and gross returns and everything. Prices in Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, Hobart all screeched higher, logging gains in excess to a 2%, while Perth jumped by 1.4%. While some of the hefty gains in strength in national figure was largely driven by Sydney and Melbourne, given they are the largest housing market in the country. Elsewhere fell by 0.5% Brisbane, Adelaide, and Darwin. So here's another value index table that gives you all the different cities broken down from year to year, month, quarterly, and from houses and dwellings and blah, blah, blah. So Australia is under siege. I think Australia is right now experiencing an economic takeover. I don't know what to tell you guys, but all I have to say is that Australia is doing what other countries are doing. Okay, I'm not saying Canada and the United States is innocent, but they're selling out to the highest bidders. And the immigrant that comes on a boat with a bag strapped over his shoulder with $0 in his pocket has zero chances of succeeding. Zero. Zip. Zilch. Nada. You know those stories when my grandpa came to Canada, when my great-grandfather came to New York, and when my family immigrated from Ireland? You know those stories? Those stories are going to cease to exist in the next 20, 30 years because it's impossible to come over with nothing and start from scratch and work hard. Finding a job is going to be next to impossible. Then keeping that job because of the abuse at work is out of control, you know, and then just covering your rent, you know. I don't know. Wow, there's a lot of people commenting here. Wow, there's 20 people watching this. Isn't anyone sleeping? Like, it's like 3 in the morning in New York right now, and it's 6 in the morning, and I think it's 7 in the morning in Portugal. So it's like pretty late, guys. But anyways, Australia is going to lose its sovereignty, and what does it mean to be Australian anymore? I don't know. And my friends from down under, please comment and let me know, because every country deserves to keep its sovereignty. Every country deserves to keep its language. Every country deserves to keep its way of life, you know, especially when it's built on the backs of our forefathers, grandfathers, grandparents. Anyways, now let's go down to New Zealand, and I've been talking about the Southern Hemisphere entering winter with the homelessness problem in New Zealand. New Zealand, per capita, is the most expensive place to live in the world right now. There's 40 people to a house in New Zealand reported. Nobody believes me. Look it up. It's on record. There's 40 people to a house living in Australia, in New Zealand, in Auckland, in major cities. Now, bloody freezing, housing New Zealand property hampers recovery after surgery. People are struggling in New Zealand. I'm at my wits. It's bloody freezing and I can't take it anymore. I can't live there. The house only got sun for a short period of time during the day, and the water did not evaporate or drain away from the property, making inside cold and damp. Southern Hemisphere in Australia. So, and this is something I've been talking about for a long time. Now, this is a very interesting story I want to share with you guys that I've been actually following for a while. Motel bill, $10,650 and rising for homeless Cambridge family. A mother who has spent 2 months living in a 2-bedroom motel with her 4 children says she's so desperate she'd consider living in a pee-contaminated house. I think they're saying urinated or urine-contaminated house. The Cambridge family have already racked up $10,650 in emergency housing grants after they were evicted from their home in April. They have applied for housing corporation and a corporation home and have also been looking elsewhere. This is so sad. There's a long article, but New Zealand is beyond, like I said, and I'm going to say it again, per capita, it's beyond what's available for sale to live in, habitable homes, against the empty homes that are, if you take the equation and mathematically put it together, it's mental. It's mental. Oh yeah, Randy678's here. So everyone's joining me so late, guys. You know, you gotta go. I don't know. Some people need to go to work tomorrow, but I decided to do a Monday night edition. You could rewind this a bit and go back to the beginning of the show and see what's going on. But this is bothering me, like that people have to live in motels and get government grants and to live. So this one's good. The Financial Post. We aren't as crazy as Vancouver or Toronto. Montreal property market basks in Goldilocks status. So Montreal, cheers to you. The housing market looks like it's going to move north to Montreal. We've been talking about this for the last 5 weeks now. And demand in Canada, the second largest city, has heated up enough to put Montreal area home prices on track to rise 6% this year, the biggest jump since 2010. Wow. While the once soaring housing market in Toronto and Vancouver are showing signs of cooling, Montreal is just getting started. Yeah. Just getting started. Demand in Canada, the second largest city, has heated up enough to put Montreal area home prices on track to raise 6% this year, the biggest jump since 2010, according to the Quebec Federation of Real Estate Boards. That's up from a January forecast of just 1% growth. Job creation, robust consumer confidence, and new immigrants are fueling demand. We aren't as crazy as Vancouver and Toronto as price increases, said Eric Goodman, agency executive at Century 21 Vision Montreal. It's like, what a job title. Hello, people. I'm an executive at Century 21 Vision Montreal. That must go good with the women at the bar, eh? But activity is pretty good. Montreal's real estate market so far has been left out of the global spotlight, focused on the booming Canadian property markets of Toronto and Vancouver. That could change the foreign buyers tax in those cities to curb demand and potentially send purchasers looking for a cheap place to invest. So let's continue here. Non-Canadian purchasers in Montreal made up 1.3% of the market last year, up from 0.7% in 2013, according to CMHC, the Ottawa-based housing agency. We expect the number to remain close to 1.5% in the short term, Lee Heroux said in an interview on Monday. Here they are. Sales, active listings in the graphs here. Compares to Toronto Real Estate Board estimated a fewer than 5% of foreign buyers last year in its region, where the demand slowed after policymakers introduced a foreign buyers levy last month. Foreigners accounted for as much as 16.5% of the value of property sold in Vancouver region before British Columbia imposed a tax in August. According to the province, the figure fell as low as 1.8% in September, though it crept back up. While growth has slowed in both Toronto and Vancouver, the median price of a single-family home in Montreal is seen climbing to $312,000, faster than the last year's 2% gain of the 1% increase predicted earlier. Montreal remains a bargain, with average prices about one-third of the levels in Toronto and Vancouver. So this is a really long but really good article, in depth. Is it gonna hit Montreal? Quebec? I don't know. I think it is. I've been forecasting the trend to go north, and I've also forecasted the trend to go south towards, I know Manhattan, New York, some of the pricier areas are doing well. I know Massachusetts, Boston, if you go out to like places like Fall River and Attleboro and cities like that, they're doing well too in the housing market right now, and they're seeing a lot of investors going into those areas. So I see it kind of going like this, like spreading like this. So north to Quebec and south. A lot of states are promoting, like Seattle, investors to come in and invest in those cities, right? Now, let's get into this. So let's go this. Yeah, One Nation. I did the latest statistics for Australia. I was reading it in a few articles ago, talking about June's increase. Canadians owe $1.67 for every $1 of household disposable income, Stats Canada says. This means Canadians are underwater. Canadians owed $1.67 in consumer credit, mortgages, and non-mortgage loans for every dollar of household disposable income in the first quarter of 2017. A slight quarterly decrease as households' net worth rose from the end of 2016, riding off the coattails off the home equity. The ratio still increased on annual basis. However, in the first quarter of 2016, Canadians owed about $1.64 per dollar of disposable income, according to Statistics Canada latest quarterly reports on the national balance sheet. Economists and Bank of Canada officials have warned about the dangers of increasing levels of household debt. The value of non-financial assets rose 1.7% on a quarterly basis and 7.7% annual, with Statistics of Canada attributing to a strong real estate market. So people are getting themselves into major debt and putting themselves in positions that I just can't fathom why people are putting themselves in these kind of positions. What do they think? They're going to live to be 200 years old and they could pay this off? Like, are people expecting to live to be 100 so they could pay this off? There's people that took student loans out in 93, 94, and they just paid them off. 93, 94, they took student loans out. This is way back in the day when the government basically took over the student loan. If the banks controlled student loans, then they could have more competitive rates, and they can make sure that students qualify for the student loans on top of that. But the government took it over and said, here, take all the student loans you need. That's become a problem. So I know people from 1993, 94, 95. That's when, back in the day when the Blue Jays won the World Series. They took out these student loans, promising to pay them back. They just paid them off. So from 93, 2003, 2013, do the math. You know what I'm saying? So this is not good. I'm proud to say, extremely proud to say, that I am 100% debt-free. The only things that I'm not debt-free of is my car insurance. I pay yearly. My life insurance is monthly. My cell phone. And that's it. My home is paid. Like, everything is paid for. So for me, like, that's why I have so much cash flow, is because I'm opening this other store with the cash flow I have, and I can take my time building it. People are worried, oh, what if you go out of business in 2-3 months if you don't pick up, or, if things don't... Relax. Let me build it. Let me network. Let me advertise. Give me a couple of years. Well, a couple of years? I'm like, yeah, that's how it works. You got to spend money to make money. I learned that on Trailer Park Boys. What rising mortgage rates could mean for Canadian homeowners? Back again to rising mortgage rates, and they're hinting at it. They're pointing at it. So then later there'll be I told you I've been pointing at this for the longest time. That's what they're all going to say. I told you guys. This is what's going to happen. I told you. So they're hinting. They're pointing. Oh, everything's pointing to this. Interest rates rising. Income going down. Layoffs. All these big box stores closing down. All these big stores that employed all these people. All these big stores that open in these cities and put all the mom and pop shops out of business are closing. This might return small mom and pop's businesses back on the map. Anyways. So a lot of people say, not true. If I didn't borrow money for my house and condo, I would not own either. So, yes. But if you borrow it and you, like I'm saying, if you put down a 30-40% down payment, you have a guaranteed income. I'm not saying not to go into debt, but I'm saying if you're buying a home, don't use the equity in your home. Let it grow. Save it for your kids. Save it for your retirement, Paying a mortgage is fine. It's better than paying rent. But make sure you do the right moves. Make sure that you're locked in a good rate. Make sure that you're not overbuying something. Don't get the over loan to value where they're giving you 100% loan to value right up front. That's horrible. Don't do zero down. That they've been doing that in London. Zero down interest rates, you know what I'm saying? And then, okay, Peter Van from one of my boys down in New Zealand saying, Auckland House is being marketed for $990,000 and saying, attention, first home buyers. That's a really good one. Anyways, guys, I'm getting hot here. I'm going to go to sleep. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'm going to leave some trends in the housing market on rewind, playing. on rewind, so it won't be live. People will be commenting, but it won't be live. I think tomorrow or after tomorrow, I'm going to let the computer run and just leave some old videos backtracking, you know. Yeah, and people are saying, yeah, using equity is a bad part. Leave the equity for your kids. Leave the equity for your retirement. Enjoy retirement, you know. Anyways. Watch my series, Starting Business. A lot of telling me to make my videos public. I'm going to do that right now before I go to sleep. Thank you for watching. Big hug to everyone. It's really hot. I'm really hot in this room. I should have opened the window. It's nice and breezy outside here in Manor. It's windy. Happy Canada Day. Thanks for joining me, Trends in the Housing Market, and good night.